Hello, welcome back to the Business is Messy podcast series. Colin Nolan here with Brian Nolan. How are we doing, Brian?
Boom.
We got some compliments on our first. People said it was so good, please don't do any more. And we said, all right, we'll do a couple more. Everyone's chagrin. So we're back.
We're back. This is the next generation version of Business is Messy. If you remember what seems like years ago now, it was Kevin and I. I used to say Kevin created messes and I helped to get them cleaned up. But now we both have messes. Don't we?
I think you said that on the first podcast too. So let's make sure you say that every time.
Okay.
Every podcast.
Well, not everybody may have heard the first one.
So we got some more messes here that need to be cleaned up, and we're just the guys to do it. Brian, when we were talking about potential topics for this podcast, the one that really kind of stuck out to me is around finding and keeping on to your key person, your number two. I've got a bunch of clients right now that are in the process of trying to hire their first real key person, or have hired what they were hoping was a key person, and they've continued to churn through a couple of different iterations of it. I was thinking about it, and what we talk about a lot is getting out of the hourglass, and that does come with the implementation of systems. But if I'm here and where I want to go is there, and there's this canyon in front of me and I got to get there, I'm only getting there through other people. Like if I'm out of the hourglass in the future and I'm not involved in the day-to-day, or I'm not cleaning up every mess in my own business, it's because I have great people in my business who are helping me do it, that I trust, that I know are operating with my decision-making values and mindset, and can do it as if I'm there. That's it. Like, you're never going to be successful and build something that you can get out of until you have those people.
The problem is what got you here won't get you there. So many people who got here through their hard work. They got here through their ability to do it all.
Putting out fires,
jumping in, and so they get dopamine from doing that, and then they may hire someone, and then they may chase them away because they swoop in and do that. So we're talking about leading leaders, and this is really rocket fuel, and it's a really good book by Gino Wickman called Rocket Fuel. And I've been doing this so long, I'm kind of long in the tooth here, Kyle. So I've bore witness to those who have found their rocket fuel. They have found their number two and have learned how to lead them and change what they do.
So in your decades upon decades upon just decades.
Has it been a century yet?
Decades and decades in business, Brian.
Yeah, it's going to be tough, by the way, guys.
Maybe a couple more decades in there. How many companies have you worked with that you started working with them and it was just the owner, and then you helped them get their first real key person in there? What I've found is there's a real mental hurdle around it. Yes, of course, I have no problem hiring technicians in the field because I can quantify that they're going to make me money. I have no problem hiring a crew leader to oversee them, or a foreman to oversee them, because I know that I need someone to do that. But it's that first non-revenue producing position that really needs to operate with a level of ownership mentality and thinking to do the job well. It's working on weekends, it's not hourly, it's at night. And there's a hurdle in getting that person. And then once you might find them, keeping them. What do you think causes that initial first hurdle? Why is it a hard thing for people to sometimes wrap their head around making that hire? Everything's got to be perfect before I make this hire.
Oh boy, it's trust and confidence and letting go. I want to tell a couple stories. The one is the story of Painters USA in 2007 when I was on the phone with Paul Cook, and I was trying to make the sale, trying to get them to join Summit Program. And I remember Paul said, I don't know what it is. I don't know whether it's my leadership, but I can't seem to get past this number. And so I don't know whether it was a year or two after hired Nicole Hannock. And I think that was his first real rocket fuel person. And, you can double and triple in 1 year. People say 10% growth this year, 10% growth this year. It doesn't happen that way. It happens in like fits and storms by you bring on a sales rep, you better grow by more. So then I'll go to a current client. In fact, I just got off the phone with Connor Painting in Indianapolis, and Bob hired a director of operations, Alan Applebaum, and he used to run I think it was a $60 million commercial cleaning company. And boy, Alan is bringing so much to his world and changing. He let go. I think a lot of people were afraid to let go, but these are key people. And there's more. There's Fitzpatrick, who brought in Ross, who ran a sporting goods chain. There's two dudes who brought in Dylan. There's DMP, who brought in his guy who used to run a floral franchise. Only then does your world change.
So how do you know when you're ready? So there's how do you keep them around? How do you manage them? But before that, how do you know you're ready? Is it a amount that you're working? Is it you've been trying to grow, you've not been able to, and do all the systems have to be in place?
I think you hit it. You a plateau. I can tell you some of these companies that I've mentioned. So like even Richie Loretta, Spectrum Painting, one of my greatest clients to work with, super profitable, but he would say he's stuck at a $5 million level. In his vision, he wants to be a $10 million business in 3 years. But in practice, it's not there. So he just started last week, Sabi, a director of operations. So I'm psyched to see what Richie does here. So all my coaching with Richie now is how to lead him to lead leaders. And it's different than when you're not just leading.
One of your greatest clients. Can you rank your clients in order of your favorite to your least favorite?
Well, I have to put all 30 of my clients all in the top.
You have 30?
No, I
wow.
don't. I think I actually have 26. Now, you have more than me, don't you?
Who's keeping track of that?
We are.
We
are. Yeah.
How do you find your first number two? Where do you find them?
That's a great question. You must have asked that for a reason.
Yeah, because it's hard to do. That's why I asked it.
What are your thoughts?
If I had the answers to it, I think I'd be a richer man. Decades and decades of experience on me. Does it come from one place, or is it varied?
Well, I tell you what people do wrong, I think, is they look only in industry. Everybody that I mentioned came from a different industry. What we're talking about is management skills here, leadership skills. A lot of these people bring EOS with them, which is, level 10 meetings, big rock concept, the ability to have values, drive culture, and they've had experience doing this. It is so much less important in the industry they work in than leadership and management that they did. Before I started our program, I was on a leadership team for a disability company. Furthest thing from painting that there could possibly be. Now, I had been involved in painting with my brother and I through a college, but what I brought was not painting.
So to answer your question, where do you find them? I think the answer is probably everywhere. I think if you need to get a recruiter, then you get a recruiter. It's more important than where you find them is how you find them. I think it's by obsessively looking and never really stopping till you know you found them. And even when you might hire someone, I have clients that have kind of churned through a supposed number two now a couple of times. I think you need to keep looking until you're sure you have them, and you never stop. Michael Murray says that he's always hiring sales reps. He's always looking. Always looking. I think it's kind of needs to be the same approach here.
Yeah. So how do you bring them in? So once you identify your person or persons, sort of talk about the onboarding of someone special. How
it depends on the role.
Okay.
For sure. I think part of the interview process needs to be around expectation setting. And this is not a 9 to 5, which I'm trying to grow this thing, you sharing your vision with them and where you want to go. And you want to make sure they're willing to put in the work to kind of match you. I think you need to be clear on your expectations on what you want out of this role. Are you a fairly demanding, high rate of work person? And you expect someone you hired to also copy that? Because the worst thing is when you hire someone and you're constantly second guessing, are they working hard enough? Are they doing the right things? That toxicity is going to get into the relationship. So I think expectations up front around how often, like what's expected, not just in results, but work ethic is a huge deal.
Yeah. I think outcome-based is really key. When you're bringing in what I call salary mindset people versus hourly mindset people, you're not looking at whether they're leaving at 2:00 to go to a dentist appointment because you're probably expecting them to work Saturday morning sometimes at home on next week's plan. So think how you lead them that way based on outcome.
If you're cash strapped or maybe profit strapped or just you don't have a ton of money to great people cost money. And if I can't pay $150 to bring in this really high level person that I know would crush it, how early is too early to give away equity? How creative can you get in bringing this person on?
Yeah, I mean, I think giving away equity, that's huge. So let's talk about
toothpaste out of the tube, right? You can't put it back in. You got to be really careful around doling it out. Oh, I'm not. That's an old. It's an old saying.
Yeah. I always caution around giving away equity. You need someone to be around for some time before you give away equity because you're giving away ownership. But
if you're expecting sweat equity from this person, you're expecting them to put in the time where you are, and you're the one who's reaping all the benefits as the owner. How do you compensate them to the level that's fair?
I think there's a lot of ways you can design a compensation program for these higher level people in your company that you want a shared success model. We have a couple mastermind retreats happening over the next 2 weeks, and this is one of the topics is long-term compensation programs and how do I keep these people? And so let's talk about profit sharing. And you can profit share. You could say any profit above 6%, I'm going to share some percent of that. And as a self-funding.
I think you really got to know your numbers to do that. Because there's a lot of things need to come out of profit, right? If you're a company looking to grow, that's how you fuel your growth is profit.
Yep.
Long-term liabilities, asset purchases all need to come out of profit.
Yeah.
So you got to view this the same way you would view a key asset purchase that's going to allow you to do a new type of service work.
Sure.
Is this person is going to allow me to do a new level of work the same way that buying this $200,000 piece of equipment is. They're both going to come out of the profit line.
Which is why I like a profit-first approach here, where you would have like 5 accounts set up, and you would have one account for your taxes, one account for operations, one account for your own profit, a reserve account. Let's have a profit account that we're dribbling money into and that they see, and we can show them that. That's there.
Do you think doing that from day one? If I'm a $1.5 million trades company and I'm having a hard time finding my number 2, that key person to unlock the next level for me, would you be opposed to from day one having a long-term incentive plan?
I would make sure that they first pass your values test, whether it's 90 days or 180, but you'll know in 180 days. I would design it in the first year, but I'd wait at least 3 months to make sure. And then I'd make sure that they can, so they pass the culture test and they can pass the first round of outcome-based testing. Then I'd start doing it.
Do systems need to be implemented in line for this person to come in and run? Or if I'm hiring my first sales rep and my sales process is not outlined yet, can I still hire them and expect them to help me put this in place?
First who, then how, baby.
First who, then how?
I mean, first who and then how. We have enough sales material that if we have the right person, don't wait until everything's perfect. Sometimes you got to walk on the bridge as you're building it.
Yeah, I mean, what I'll just say to put a bow on that is there's always going to be some fix or system you could implement. Nothing's ever perfect. So if that's kind of your mindset, you're always going to be able to point to something and go, when I have that done, I'll do it.
This is a team sport. You know, so many of us start a business, and it's owner operated. I did it the first 2 years, and it only begins to get fun when it's a team sport and your team's involved and you learn how to open up. I do think this is one of the bigger issues, is the inability to understand that I'm building now a management team that I want to debate. I've had to learn this here, and to not give body language that would really scare a number 2.
So when they join the company, they've been around for 180 days, whatever, 6 months. How do you keep them around? If these people are as good as they need to be, they quickly become fairly integral in the business. And then we're afraid to have difficult conversations with them and to lead them the way we think we need to lead them, because we're afraid of, well, if I say something wrong, are they going to leave? I can't have this conversation with them right now because I can't afford them getting upset and leaving, so then I'm back to square one. That's a mess that I think a lot of owners, I've dealt with it as a business coach. People have said that to me. I can't have that conversation right now. I can't afford them to get upset and leave.
So let's talk about communication with your number 2. So there's one-on-one meetings, which really important. Then there's also the informal conversations. And the experts say that the most effective relationships are those where there is frequent informal conversations on a regular basis. We're bouncing things off each other. I'm not just waiting for the once a week, but I've got someone that I feel like I'm in battle with. And then let's talk about the one-on-ones. Carl, how do you come to our meetings? How do you prepare for it?
How do I prepare for it? I keep a running list through the week of topics and issues that I want to bring to the meeting.
Bingo.
And put them into a Word doc. So on good weeks, I'm building that doc as it goes along. Sometimes I'll get to Monday morning and I won't have anything there. I don't have to take a few minutes and recollect. But ideally, it's through the week. I'm adding things to it as they come up.
So it's not accountability meeting where I'm holding you accountable. I'm asking you to report on things. It's a support meeting where you're bringing things to me, and I'm like, how can I help you, Kyle?
Yeah, it's as the owner, or the leader, you're doing the blocking and tackling so they can go across goal line. I think that mindset is not a common one in small businesses. It's what are you working on? What am I holding you accountable to? Do I need to give you feedback? That tends to be what people think of around the one-on-ones.
They do.
When that's not what it is.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if the numbers are off, you'll be talking about that. You would expect your person to bring that to you. But really, your job as a leader of leaders is to knock down any barriers, to help them with confidence, to develop them, to give them resources they need, to make sure that they see the pathway to winning.
So if you're in that position where I'm in a one-on-one with an employee, a key employee, and I'm afraid of being honest because I'm afraid of saying something that's going to make them leave, the answer is that in reality, you probably blew it months or years earlier by not being authentic and leading the right way and communicating effectively before. But if that's the case, the question still remains, what do you do? Do you risk it or do you go along? How would you handle that?
The first thing I would say is, what can I do differently? I would ask myself if I've led correctly.
I mean, the answer is no, that you've not. If you're in this situation, the answer is no.
So I maybe haven't set expectations enough. Maybe I did some dumping, delegating without instructing. Maybe I didn't use situational leadership the way that I should have. So I really want to start with vulnerability for where I blew it. And I want to make sure that I'm doing that first.
You're advising to have the tough conversation and to eat the frog, so to speak.
But start with you. Start with you, the leader, of where you've not been as clear.
Yeah.
And instead, you're building up resentment towards your employee who's not doing the job that you thought.
I think that's a great point. I think there is a prevailing occurrence of that where we are not giving feedback, we're not communicating with our employees, we are building resentment towards them, and we think we're doing a good job of keeping it in, and we're really not. It's coming out in our body language and our tone, they're getting it.
And we somehow think they knew what we wanted them to do. So one of the first things that I always coach around is don't spend time with them telling them all the things they're not doing. Start with what your expectations, what your vision is. Your vision is of this job. Hey, I want to be super clear. My expectation of this job is that you would help me. This is my vision of this role. In other words, state the vision of the role so that they can see it, and as opposed to just reading it on a job description of tasks. This gets into position vision. But state, if someone's not performing up to your satisfaction somehow, don't assume that they know what your satisfaction is. Like, lay out there the profile of what a person in this position is doing is awesome, is like this.
So to go back to the question of, do you bring up the issue and risk them leaving, or do you keep it mum? I think as a general best practice, it's have the tough conversation, do it the right way, lead with what you did wrong first, but with the caveat of situation matters, right? If cash is tight and you're in a really difficult spot, maybe wait a month or two if you really think there's a chance that they're going to leave. If everyone's got certain situations where they can't risk it. But generally speaking, you should always have that conversation. Would you agree?
I do. And I would also say that let's start with when they start to say something like, hey, one of the things I'm working on doing is communicating better. I want you to always know where you stand with me. I'm going to give you feedback. Right, this is one of my affirmations. You know that. I give feedback. I give feedback often. I give more good feedback than bad feedback. People do more good than they do bad. You always know where you stand with me. If you can ingrain that in your neural pathways, it'll be tough for you to not say it, because I give feedback. That's what I do. And in fact, feedback is a gift. Not to give feedback is just wrong, because it's not fair. Because someone leaves their office, they could be thinking they're doing a great job, and you're thinking this person's not doing a great job. So what are we doing here? That's not a relationship, and that's no longer your number two, right?
There you go. My final question on this mess is, what advice would you give to someone that fits in the category of, I typically will swoop in and have a hard time ceding control, and people would call me a micromanager behind my back, or maybe in front of my back? How does that person get over this hump?
The first thing I'd say is listen to Colin and Molly's podcast on situational leadership. There's a series of 5 different podcasts.
I think we need to. That's like almost 7 years old now. I think we need to do an updated version.
I think it's 6 years old.
6 years old. There you
I
go.
think it still resonates.
Holds up.
Completely. Oh, yeah. I think it's July 2020 that you got started this, and you did one a month, and you did SMART goals first, and you did D1, S1. So we're talking about like an alignment conversation first. So let's be clear. This whole swooping in could be okay. When is swooping in okay, Ka?
I think swooping in is okay in times of emergency.
Okay.
Where urgency trumps importance and efficiency trumps effectiveness. Where it's more important to get this done in a timely manner than it is to teach someone how to do something long term.
But let's define urgency, because sometimes it's urgent in someone's mind.
Safety on a job site.
Okay, that's jumping in.
Any kind of safety is urgent,
No
and
question.
you swoop in. And then I think you need to put a financial value on urgency. If it's a mistake that could cost the company over $1,000, whatever it is, I swoop in. Maybe it's 10,000. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's higher than that because sometimes
Probably
you
it's
have
higher
to
than that.
invest in learning.
Yeah, but I think most things would qualify as non-urgent, and we take them as urgent.
Most things.
Like a customer's upset, and like we get a phone call in, and the customer's upset about something going on. We just go into fight or flight mode immediately. We got to make this customer happy. That is so non-urgent.
You show up at a job site and you see some things getting done wrong, and so you swoop in and start directing the apprentices and the painter, and the crew leader sees you do that and loses all feelings of I'm the leader and depreciate it. That is not urgent and swooping in. So let's talk about when do you swoop in relative to SL2.
SL2 would say you never swoop in.
Well, not swoop in. Maybe let's say
direct. When would you
Okay.
direct an SL2?
Yeah.
If competency is not yet established, that's when you would swoop in. If someone has not been taught how to do something yet or has not shown competency in that thing yet, then that's when you would direct and tell them how to do it. Once somebody has proven that they're able to do something and has proven a level of competency in it, the swooping in is never ideal. Directing is never ideal, again, unless there's a agreed upon urgency put upon it.
So let's come back to this, you and your number two having an alignment discussion of where this employee is on every task on their job description, and getting agreement, whether they're D1, D2, D3, D4, and starting by saying, I'm going to lead you differently.
I'm going to try to.
I
think that's where it starts, to be totally honest. I think it starts with, by the way, I am I will self-describe myself as a micromanager. I am really trying to stop this, but I have a habit of jumping in. I have a habit of directing. It's going to happen with us. As best as I try not to, it's going to happen. I don't want it to happen ever, but it will. I need you to, A, patient with me, because just know I don't want to do that. And B, help coach me and direct me as I'm doing it. I need you to say things like, I know you want to swoop in and direct here. I have a low level of competency. I can make this happen.
I'm an S3 here.
Sure, something along those lines.
Yeah.
So I think calling it out and talking about it and setting that expectation, naming it. Right.
Yeah.
If I'm doing something, if I'm micromanaging and the other person I'm micromanaging doesn't have the ability to go, hey, I think you're micromanaging me. It's just the frustration is just going to boil inside of them until they're just going to quit.
Yeah.
You know?
So it's like any relationship. Communicate. Don't make up stories about the other person. I want to get into wrong hires for just a minute and how to avoid wrong hires and what to do about it. One of the biggest messes that I see is people fall in love in a interview, and they validate why they should bring him in. And they send me a resume, and I see that the person has had 3 jobs in 4 years, maybe one stint of 3 years, 10 years ago. And I'm like, what makes me think they're going to want to stay at your place?
Yeah, there's a case to be made that in-person or even Zoom interviewing is less effective than over email. It's now, to some degree, you need to get a culture fit. You need to make sure there are values fit. And sometimes that's going to be interpersonal. But most issues is that come up in interviews is we could catch it in a transcript. But when the person's in front of me, I justify it because I like them. I like the way that they match and mirror my tone. So I naturally am going to like them more. Or they compliment me. So that ingratiates myself to them, right? So the in-person, that gives us more information about them that's irrelevant to the job, that allows us to justify what we can see in a resume or even through an email interview, right? Answer these questions. Tell me a time when you've had to do X, Y, or Z. If they just tell me that story, I go, that applies. That doesn't apply.
So you're talking about the key to the time span and hiring talent.
Sure, exactly.
Tell me about a time versus how would you handle a situation where you show up?
But ultimately, it comes down to try and justify based off. So I think actually, I don't know if this is where you're going with this, but I think AI and using AI in the interview process and having them kind of cut through the fall in love aspects of an interview would work super well. So you take transcripts from all your interviews, feed it into an AI bot that's been programmed and knows your culture and knows what you're looking for, and can give you recommendations based off of that because they're not falling in love with anyone. You know?
That's great.
Now, people fall in love with AI. That's a whole other conversation.
Yeah. I want to say
that was a joke.
Sorry, my head was already spinning.
That started in the film Her with Joaquin Phoenix. He fell in love with his AI.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'll have to go back and see that.
I've never seen it.
Okay.
I just know about it.
Richie Loretta now will bring someone in, not hired, and he will pay them for a day or two.
Yeah.
And have them with their crew leader and salesperson, and really like more than an hour interview. We have a couple hour interviews, and now we're going to marry them. And holy cow, once they're in, if they're a bad fit, getting them out would
A
be
trial week.
a problem.
Sounds great. Yeah.
Totally. The other thing that I see happen, and that's a mess, is people not checking references, or if they're checking references, they check the wrong references. They check names that people have on their resume or they're given, and they're a prior supervisor. If someone has been in 3 jobs in 4 years, and they can give good reasons why the business was sold. Oh, okay. Can I speak to your former manager?
People don't want to ask for references. I always ask that when people are telling me about their potential hires. I go, have you talked to their references? And they always go no, or they haven't even asked yet.
Listen to me now on this podcast, you guys listen in. Do not skip this step. I have seen this step skipped so many times, and it will bite you.
I think it's more important than like the last interview.
Oh, it is. And don't wait until the end.
Yeah.
If you like the person, ask for a couple former supervisors.
You can't even get someone from the last job or two if they've been around. If they've, to your point, 3 jobs in 4 years. If there's not 1 or 2 bosses, at least one boss from any of those jobs that can speak highly of that person, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Why are you the 4th job in 4 years going to be different than the first 3?
Yeah.
You know,
the person's obviously shopping. They're looking at their own life, trying to figure
nothing
things
wrong with
out.
that, but you don't need to be the testing ground for that. You know.
Yeah, that's right. I just want to go back to one more thing on this compensation thing. Mm-hmm. If I could just circle back, then we'll wrap up here. I really believe in long-term compensation programs. Whether it's a phantom stock option, which if you ever sell it, they get a baseline value and they get a percentage of the increase in value.
And that only
over
comes
time.
into play if it gets sold.
That does. Okay. But then there's also deferred compensation plans and long-term compensation plans where you're setting up money and putting it into an account, whether you base it on performance of that person or the company in general, or just them being there. The way that I've done it is I believe in people, and I'm putting away money. And if you're here in 10 years, you're going to get a lot of money, and I show that account. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of options like that I would really encourage you to discuss with your coach. There's sabbaticals you can give people. There's lifestyle spending accounts you could put in place. You could offer concierge services to a very busy person to help them navigate.
Remind me to ask you about the concierge service once we're offline here. Maybe the sabbatical as well. You could give me some ideas.
Yikes. Maybe we should rewind and cut that piece out.
Concierge. Interesting.
So the mess. I can't find, I can't lead, I can't keep. Or what do you do? Actually, let's just end here. What do you do when you're number 2 and you're
you close up shop, call it a day? I mean, you gotta get back at it. There's no other alternative. Is that a trick question? Because it seems like there's no other alternative than just to get back at it.
Well,
there's going to be an massive emotional hit. You got to figure out how to process that. I think you look at what you did wrong, right?
Yeah, it's a little trick point here, question, because you don't only want a number 2, you want a 2, 3, and 4.
Right.
So make sure that you're building a team and that you're communicating broadly with your management team. And then, as you said earlier, Michael Murray is always looking for good salespeople. I'm always looking for good talent. Mm-hmm. One of my first managers said to me, when you find someone really, really talented, don't pass them up, find a spot. And you also ask, can we afford this person? Well, you can't afford not to. So you build a budget where the revenue meets the new expense.
No, we're running out of time, but that's a big point. I've had a couple conversations recently where people are like, this person is a freaking rock star. I know it's an overused saying, but that's, for lack of a better word, I just don't know if I can afford them. Like, we're talking about what, $30,000 extra here. If they're a rock star, they're not going to give you ROI on that. So I think with the hard cost of these superstars is so apparent in our face. We're like, but what if I can't scale to afford them? But what if you can?
That's right.
Like, what are you giving up by saying no to this? All right, if it doesn't work, then we'll cut our losses. We'll figure it out. But wouldn't you want to look back and say, I gave it a go. I brought on that awesome person and we gave it our best try. Just sitting there being like, I wonder what would have happened happen if I brought on that guy? I wonder
So,
where we'd be.
if I'm let's say a $5 million company, and I'm trying to figure out whether I can bring on a director of operations at $150,000, and you're stressing because you're already not so profitable. You're not so profitable because you're in Death Valley, let's just say. So the revenue needed, the additional revenue, probably an additional $400,000 to support the 150. So if you can't bring on, if that person can't help you do that, then it's the wrong person, and you want to cut them earlier.
I agree with you, and I could even make a case that at $5 million, $150,000 awesome operations manager should be able to improve efficiencies to pay for themselves outright if they're really that great.
Sure.
Like there's enough of a revenue there to where a minor 2 or 3 things will add up.
Well, even taking GP from 42% to 46 is going to bring in on a $5 million company an extra $200,000, excuse me.
Who are they going to free up to then their time elsewhere?
Yeah.
So they can, there's a whole lot of things.
Well, we just cleaned up that mess, didn't we, Kyle?
It's all done.
Yeah.
All
good.
right.
Until next time.
Until next time. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Brian.
Take care. Bye-bye.